Well, let's speak to Rodger Shahanan. He's a researcher at the Lowy Institute for International Policy. He joins us now from Sydney. Thanks very much for joining us on TRT World. Look, for most people, Australia is on the other side of the world. Actually, you know what? Even if you're in Asia, Australia's on the other side of the world. Explain to us the country's importance in international affairs.
Well, I think we like to think of ourselves as an engaged middle power. We have good relations with most countries in the world. We're a very large receiver of immigrants. We've had nearly 25 years of unbroken economic growth. So it's a country that sees itself as, while it might be physically isolated, the kind of globalised environment that we live in really suits Australia. Distances are not what they used to be in the past, and Australia has been able to develop a very advanced economic and social system, even though it's quite removed from the rest of the world, and many of us tend to like it that way.
Rodger, every year in Australian politics seems to be an Ides of March scenario. Leaders are continually stabbed in the back. What is it, 5 prime ministers in 6 years, I think? Is that likely to change at all after this election? Because that is not stability in any sense of the word.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. Australia's been used to political stability for so long. And we went through this with the Labor Party. Now the current government has done it. And I think the electorate rightly punishes those parties who change their prime ministers when the electorate really sees that it's its role to change who leads the country, even though it is a parliamentary political system. And I think that's one of the reasons why the current government is in so much trouble, because the electorate wants to punish people for changing the prime ministers and have these internal coups.
Every election that we preview seems to suggest that the economy, the jobs are the most important thing for voters. And I understand that that's also the case in Australia this Saturday. But another issue has come up, and it's climate change. It seems with the building movement of people becoming more and more aware of climate change that this particular election that's taking place on Saturday seems to have come at a moment when climate change is just thrusting itself into the political limelight and could actually make a difference to who eventually takes power in a country, in a whole country, which could be based on a movement of climate change. Would that be fair enough?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and certainly climate change has been one of the issues that have been discussed, and it has had quite a high profile in the election campaign to date. As you pointed out also, the economy is always the issue that tends to deliver parties, government or not. But I suppose one of the issues here, and a point of difference, and one of the reasons on a purely policy front as opposed to an organisational front that the coalition is weaker than the opposition at the moment, is that the coalition has never really been able to get a coherent climate change policy going. And while the Greens parties in Australia get nationally around 9 to 10% of the vote, so it's got not insignificant general interest in the population. Certainly climate change has been a high-profile issue. I think it might be going too far to say that it would be the reason why people change governments. I think it will always be one of two things. It will be the economy, and it's also, as you said before, punishment for the current government for changing prime ministers during the term of government. So climate change is an issue, but I don't think it's the defining issue of this campaign.
Rodger, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Rodger Shahanan speaking to us from Sydney.